From Pocketnow.com, this is Pocketnow Weekly.
Hello, and welcome to episode 009 of the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week podcast from Pocketnow.com, where we discuss news and opinion from the world of mobile technology, smartphones, tablets, phablets of every color, shape, and size. I'm your host, Michael Fisher, senior editor at Pocketnow, and I'm joined by our editor-in-chief, Brandon Miniman. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And video extraordinaire and iOS expert, the man from Honduras, Jaime Rivera. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How's everything?
Oh, you know, terrific. Listeners, thanks for tuning in again. Our last podcast was a special edition podcast from Berlin, as you may recall, and that is where our managing editor, Anton Dinaj, is this week. He's back in Berlin, correcting for an error that was not his fault. There's an Apple mishap, actually, which I'm sure he will be more than happy to tell us about when he returns, but he's not here this week. And so we will miss him. But this week's episode is no less special because there has been a ton of news. In fact, that is a huge understatement. There has been so much news between now and when we did our last podcast that I am frankly overwhelmed. I was putting the outline for this together, and it's outrageous how much happened this week. This is easily the biggest week that I've encountered since coming aboard. Would it be fair to say this is the biggest week this year, Brandon, Jaime?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, we get really busy when announcements happen because then we follow up with, editorial and video, yeah. And we sort of do what we do best during these periods of time. And it was kind of boring actually in the summer for a while. But yeah. the last 3 weeks we had Nokia, we had Motorola, Microsoft. Wait, that's part of the Nokia event. We had the iPhone 5 announcement next week, HTC. There's also an LG announcement next week, which actually I don't know if that many people know about. But we have to keep in mind that this is all for the holiday season, so that when you go and buy your loved ones some technology, you've got the latest ingredients to choose from, and you'll pay for it.
Yeah.
But it's fun for us. And actually, yesterday, the iPhone 5 announcement, it was our biggest traffic day in our 12-year history. So I'm very grateful to everyone that read our stuff, that commented. We had so much good discussion on the site. And, I'm really proud of the Pocketnow team in particular for doing such a good job with their writing and their videos. It was a fun day.
Thank you, sir. Right back at you. It was nice to, but when I was putting the podcast together, actually, Brandon had sent out this email to everybody indicating that it was such an awesome day for us yesterday, and that's great because we spend, when we're following these announcements, we're spending all this time kind of just getting all the information together, and then the hours afterwards are spent cobbling together opinion pieces and stuff, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So why don't we do that? There's so much has happened. And part of the reason that I'm really glad to have Jaime on the show today is because he is our resident iOS. What would you call yourself, Jaime? Maven? Superfan?
I'm just the iPhone guy.
The iPhone guy, right? So if listeners, longtime readers know this. Joe Levi is kind of our Android-focused guy. Adam Lean is our Windows Phone 8 expert, and then Jaime is our iOS guy, and then the rest of us all, of course, love our own particular platforms. I would have been the WebOS guy if I'd come aboard a year earlier, and yada yada. So let's just jump right in here. I want to talk about this. Apple's finally announced the iPhone 5. We have a ton of editorial content, but just Jaime, can you just take us down like the bullet points of yesterday, like what this brings to the table that's an improvement over the 4S, just for a review?
Ballpark figure is we've got a longer device that's thinner, that's lighter, that's more powerful, but it's sadly running iOS 6, which is not my cup of tea, sadly. I think I'm just spoiled by iOS 5. It was just so big. It was such a big change that I was expecting for the iPhone 5 to bring something different. I mean, the 4S wasn't really great, but it brought Siri, and it was good enough for that to sell. So the iPhone 5 is a beautiful design, really nice. The 4-inch form factor is the sweet spot for me. But sadly, that's pretty much it. When it comes to hardware, that's the only thing. You get 4G LTE, you get a new A6 processor, which is nobody knows if it's quad core or not. We know that I think it's dual core with the Crate architecture, which just makes it even faster than some quad core processors. But again, it's just a really nice design with last year's software. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that. I was going if Michael said to me, Brandon, what do you think about the iPhone 5? I was going to say 3 thumbs up for the hardware, 4 thumbs down for the software. And Jaime just said that in more or less words, and I totally agree.
Yeah, and imagine, I believe somebody, a very handsome member of the team, wrote a piece called The iPhone 5, Tomorrow's Hardware Running Yesterday's Software. Again.
Very handsome. Hold on. I don't think that's on the list of our attributes.
Well, I think it's nice that we're all kind of on the same page here. I want to talk about the software in a second, but the hardware, there's a lot to like here. First of all, it is always interesting to me to see where our reader base sits. And, on a big news day like this, you get a lot of comments, you get a ton of feedback from the community, and you really kind of get to feel out at least the most vocal members of the community. And it is amazing how how these people don't want to give Apple any slack whatsoever, because most of our readers are not what you would call Apple fans. The thing is, I wrote that piece that I just talked about, Tomorrow's Hardware Running Yesterday's Software, and I got something like 33 comments in a few hours. And any comment that disagreed with any element of my piece was disagreeing with me giving Apple any credit whatsoever for the hardware. Like, there were no defenders, leaping to Apple's, defense. Everyone was just like, what do you mean tomorrow's hardware? But I think that we have to really give Apple some credit here. And I know, Jaime, we have some industrial design kind of qualms to talk about, but I think as an extrapolation of what was happening on the 4S, this is an okay improvement.
Oh, it is an improvement. I mean, to be honest with you, I was starting to talk about, on the last 007 podcast about how jumbo phones are just becoming too uncomfortable. And you weren't agreeing with me with the HTC One X, for example, which in my problem is with the phone is the weight distribution of the phone is just so bad that the phone is just too heavy.
On the One X?
And the One X, yes, which you don't get that problem with the Galaxy Nexus or the Galaxy S3, for example, even though it's a jumbo phone. And what I like about the iPhone 5, is the fact that it's bigger, but it's not that big, and it's much lighter. So I am expecting for the experience to be good. I don't know. The design is good. I mean, they figured out a way to use aluminum back, like in the first generation iPhone, and instead of using plastic at the bottom, what they did was use glass for the antennas, which was really smart. But let's just hope we're not going to have antenna gate issues with this phone.
Right.
We'll just have to wait for the phone to be released, I guess.
That's glass on the top and bottom of the back plate. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's funny because when I did the first impressions video, I said, finally you don't have to worry about cracking the back if you drop your phone. But actually, that wasn't exactly right, because now you've got 3 pieces of glass to crack and not 2. Although it seems that the glass is in a place that wouldn't get hit. For example, it would hit the edge first, but it's still glass, and it's beautiful and everything. But I thought in this case I'd get away without needing a case, even though I never use a case anyway, and I destroy my phones.
You slam your phones.
Me too. Yeah.
What? Come on, guys. Don't gang up on me.
You slam your phone. I've never seen anybody mistreat their phones more than that.
Jaime, what you don't realize is that I'm doing durability tests when I slam my phone.
Constant durability testing over the course of a lifetime.
I've got so much data on durability of phones. It's unreal.
You're the perfect editor for After the Buzz, man. You really tell people what to expect.
Yeah. This kind of segues nicely while we're talking about hardware on the iPhone 5 here, because while I appreciate it, I think that it is a little bit dull, but also it's different. And it's different in some ways that are, obviously the headphone jack has been moved to the bottom.
Yuck.
Right. Jaime does not like that. I don't really mind that. I don't know. I got used to it on my Galaxy Nexus. But what's interesting is you look at the bottom while you're looking at that, and you see those speakerphone, the speaker holes alongside the new dock connector are much, much larger. They're drilled out to a larger degree, and it kind of looks
cheap.
Really cheap. and yeah, kind of really ugly. Jaime mentioned this in a piece that you should read called "What Would Steve Jobs Say About the iPhone 5," which I want to talk about right now because this is a fascinating topic. This phone got a little bit of buzz behind it based on the fact that maybe it was the last prototypical iPhone that Steve Jobs saw before he, left the company.
Nah.
You don't think so? Hit me.
No.
What's the story?
I don't think so. See, if you notice Apple design, look at any of the MacBooks, look at any of their previous products, and you'll notice that the back of any product that they've launched only has, at most, 2 different colors or 2 different materials, but that's it. And everything is either centered on one area or the other. Like, for example, on the MacBook, all you have is aluminum with a shiny apple. Or with the iPad, you have just the back with the little apple. And I don't know, you've got 2 pieces of glass, one at the top and one at the bottom. Then you've got an apple in the middle. Then you've got aluminum. Then you've got everything looking like a checkerboard that totally changes when you go into the borders. And then you've got glass at the front. And then you look at the bottom, and the speakers are not even symmetrically designed. One is larger than the other. And I'm like, man, Steve Jobs would have been like, what is this? I mean, this is not Apple. You've never seen a MacBook Pro with the one speaker larger than the other. You've never seen that. And I don't know. I don't feel that Steve Jobs would have been proud of this design. I mean, yes, the product is thinner. Can you believe that this phone is actually almost half lighter than the Nokia Lumia 920 that hasn't even been launched? So, yeah, there are a lot of things that are going to set the bar for the next smartphones to come next year when it comes to thinness and lightness, probably materials. But then the design aesthetics of the device just don't look like Steve Jobs at all.
Can we talk about that for a second? I'm a rapidly dwindling minority member when it comes to weight on smartphones. I don't want a lighter phone. When the iPhone 4S came out, or the 4 came out, and I hefted it, and it's heavy. Okay, heavy to me says quality. Heavy to me says it's built of materials that are going to last, like stainless steel, not aluminum. Like hardened glass and not plastic. So it's like, I don't know. I don't want a lighter phone. I found it quite disappointing when they said that this was a lighter device. Am I crazy?
You're crazy.
I think.
Great. Good.
I think they. Jaime was talking about, how a device feels in the hand, and it's so mysterious to me how a device like the One X feels not so good for my hands typing, whereas I get the Galaxy S2, which is plasticky on the back, and there's just something about the weighting of the phone. And it can't be too light. I agree, Michael. That makes it feel weak and cheap and insubstantial. But it can't be too heavy to where your hands get tired. And it's almost some mysterious quality and engineering that must go into getting a phone to weigh the right amount. I've got faith that the iPhone 5 is light enough to where it feels amazing, but it's heavy enough to where it feels substantial and high quality. I mean, they're not going to release a product that people would say, oh, this feels like it's like air in my hands.
Chintzy,
right.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example, and you're going to agree with me on this one. How do you feel about your Galaxy Nexus?
I feel like it's broken.
Oh, yours is broken.
Sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
No, really. How do you feel when you hold your Galaxy Nexus and type away?
I personally, I felt like I was coming home after I gave up a review device and I came back to the Galaxy Nexus. I felt like that was the perfect device for me.
A lot of people criticize the hump at the bottom, but that weight distribution of the hump allows for the phone to feel light, but not too light. And in my case, I do a lot of typing on phones. I do. And even though I love the One X, I love it to death. It's the most beautiful phone I've ever owned.
Yeah.
My problem with it is the weight distribution is so high at the top that my pinky fingers become tired of holding the phone as I try to type.
It's got to be that image sense chip up there.
I don't know what it is.
The amazing camera.
I don't know what it is. I just feel that the Galaxy Nexus is a great example of a well-designed smartphone.
Yes.
Hump and all, it feels great in the hand. And the iPhone 4S and the 4, and even the 3GS, what I liked about the device is that it wasn't so heavy. It was heavy up to the point where it didn't feel cheap, but it wasn't too heavy in order for me to enjoy holding it while I type. So I'm expecting for the iPhone 5 to feel the same. That's just me.
Yeah.
I hope so. We will see. I'm kind of still looking at the spec sheet here. We have this enhanced camera as well, which interested me. First of all, I don't want to give the thing short shrift on the display, because this new 16:9 4-inch display, is still at Retina resolution at 326 ppi. But Apple is claiming 44% more color saturation.
It's so funny that they say that, because then I think to myself, this phone has to have oversaturated color, because the iPhone 4S had one of the best screens. And then I take out my 4S and I look at the icons and I'm like, you know what? This green could be a lot greener, and this blue could be bluer. And so
is that because you've spent so much time on Samsung phones, like with Super AMOLEDs with the really poppin' color, or
I think so. I think Super AMOLED screens kind of set the benchmark in color saturation, and LCDs by design have lower color saturation. So, if you pull up a black screen on the iPhone 4S, it's not entirely black. It's like really dark gray. Yeah. And so, I mean, maybe they fix that. Maybe they have some of the characteristics of AMOLED with the quality of LCD.
We will see. It was one of the things that I was very happy to see in the announcement. It's so nice to see a company focus on something other, because Apple's already won the Pixel war, right? Like, it's like, here, look, it's a Retina quality display. We're going to call it whatever we want, but it's a really high pixel density display. So the next thing we're going to do is do color better. And I think some people probably wouldn't agree. I think Brandon, I think you're one of the ones who kind of prefers more accurate color, whereas I have this really tacky element of my taste, where I'm like, no, man, if there's color, I want super color. I want there to be like the greenest green I've ever seen, just popping off the screen.
Yummy.
So yeah.
Yeah. And just to give you, some of the comments yesterday on our post were like, I can't believe this iPhone doesn't bring a high definition display, 720p.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm like, why would you want 720p on such a small screen?
It's a good point, Jaime, but it's also kind of ridiculous if you think about it, because when the iPhone 5 plays back video, and it'll do it without letterboxing or black bars, it'll have to downsample 1280 by 720 into 1136 by 640, which is, it's not really true to life, and it's also kind of weird and not standard.
It is, yeah. It's a very odd set of numbers there that you don't see very often.
You've got a good point there. Yes. I mean, I just feel what would be the pixels per inch of a 720p display on 4 inches?
I don't know.
Don't worry about making the numbers. I'm just, do you really think the downsampling will make any difference on a screen that small is the question. I mean, 720p makes sense on a 4.x or 5-inch screen, but on a 4-inch screen, I don't know. I'm not.
Is 367. I did the calculation.
That would be the pixels per inch rating?
Yeah.
That's going to be insane. I mean, I'm not trying to say that Apple shouldn't have brought an HD display. Probably that's what we're going to see in the next iPhone 6. Let the rumors begin. Let the rumors begin.
That was like one of my favorite tweets from yesterday. It was like, after today, now we can all start looking forward to the iPhone 6. Yes.
Yeah, but still, I'm just, for all those that are bashing the display, I want to see to believe. Apple has done a good job ever since the 4, and I don't think this display is going to disappoint, even though it's not HD.
I don't think it's going to disappoint either, really. But I have a question about that my roommate posed to me while I was drawing up the outline for the podcast here, actually, which is about the developer question. We saw at the announcement yesterday there was some discussion about existing apps running with black bars to the left and right in landscape. And how iOS's, development framework makes it easy to scale up your apps if you want to. And then they showed off CNN and OpenTable, which they always love showing off. All these companies just love pimping OpenTable. I've never used it. I should use it, I guess. But like, what is the story there? Like, is it as easy as Apple is saying, or are we going to have a long period, sort of like we had with the initial iPad, where like we're kind of running scaled up apps, waiting for apps to be rewritten for a while?
Well, the good thing is the pixels aren't really changing when it comes to density, so the app is still going to look good. All you're going to have is 2 black bars on the top and the bottom.
Of 88 pixels.
Of 88 pixels, that's right. The only problem you'll have, and if anybody relies on old, old applications that were designed by people that are probably not supporting them anymore, like the free apps from the beginning, that is going to be a problem because most likely those applications are going to stay that way. For example, I have this converter application that's free, and I've had it ever since the 4 came out, for example. And I don't see any I haven't seen any updates for that app in a year or so. So most likely, yes, those kind of applications are going to be, sadly not going to be updated. But again, it's going to be cumbersome at the beginning, but like we saw with the iPad or like we saw with the iPhone 4, all it took developers was probably a month. And I think it took more for Apple to approve the apps than for the changes to be approved. So, and one thing about the iOS 6 SDK is that it includes a way for applications to be dynamic so that they can work on both larger displays and shorter displays. So I think that's all they have to do. I don't think it's going to take long.
Yeah, and in fact, when the iPad 3 came out, I was very closely watching how long it would take for the apps to be updated for Retina, and not all, but a big percentage of the major apps like New York Times and Amazon and so forth were updated by day one because they had like a week or 2 or 3 or however long the pre-order period was to get it ready. But I think that developers are getting really used to this process where Apple changes the hardware and they have to scramble to update the software. So I think a month might actually be a bit longer than it's actually going to take. It's probably going to be more like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And something else I actually want to mention. That's sort of interesting. So Android has crept up in resolution over time. The G1 was like, HVGA, and then we got WVGA, and then we got QHD, then we got 720p, and we really haven't gotten above 720p. But with each iteration of screen resolution, what has happened to the apps? They've basically been stretched out, right?
Yeah.
And even in a lot of cases, we talk about this all the time on the podcast, you get like a tablet, like a Transformer Prime Infinity with 1920 by 1200 resolution, and you run the Twitter app on it, and it is just like disgusting.
Comical.
It's comical. It's like a 3-year-old could have done something like that. But what Apple does is they interestingly frame it differently. When I think it was Phil Schiller, when he was talking about the increased amount of pixels going, up beyond the 960, going to the 1136. He didn't say, it won't take very long for developers to stretch out their apps. He said it won't take very long for developers to figure out ways to make apps better and take advantage of that screen space. Here are several examples of before and after. And so what he is doing by standing on stage and saying that is that he's paving the way for higher quality apps than even we're seeing today on the iPhone, because he's saying that these apps should not be just stretched. They should be better.
They should be redesigned to be better, yes.
Exactly. Yeah. And you don't see the Google guys really talking about this much. I just thought that was interesting.
Still you don't. I mean, we've been talking about this since the podcast started, since I came aboard, since before then. Is this Google's lack of focus on creating an application environment, on incentivizing developers to build tablet-optimized apps or apps optimized for different screen sizes. I agree.
And I guess one of the problems with that is just that if I'm a developer, I'm going to go crazy developing apps for 6 different screen sizes.
Right.
Whereas now with iOS, you do basically 2. You do iPad and iPhone/iPod Touch.
And now you're going to be doing 3.
I think it'll be 3 because obviously the 4S and the 4 are still going to remain.
True.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And then you've got the iPad 2, so that's actually what? That's 4.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you actually have to make 4 separate apps, or if it's a situation like you make an app for the iPad 2 and then it's got some extra lines of code to boost the resolution and some placement changes for the iPad 3. I don't know if it works that way.
We'll leave that for developers. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I do like the approach also. I find it ironic that Android, being a software company, doesn't push this any further than Apple does. But, aside from my curiosity of how developers will handle this on iOS, I wonder what developers are going to do with Windows Phone 8, with new screen resolutions and everything.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
But anyways, that's another topic.
It is. But we've got... I while we're talking about this, because I don't want to leave the iPhone quite yet, because we've covered the hardware, but I have a question, and this is kind of a personal question. So we're going to get to know each other a little bit better. Am I crazy? Am I? And I want to ask this to both of you, but Jaime, I think you are the one I'd like to ask first. Like, because you love the iOS ecosystem, you're an iPhone guy, you're an iPad guy. But I am so tired of iOS's kind of visual aesthetic, and I have to check myself sometimes because I'll write a piece like I wrote yesterday, and I'll be like, is it just me being a UI snob? Does everyone else... Can everyone else live with this kind of static grid of icons that we've had since 2007? You mentioned before that you're not a fan of it, but how much... Like, you're enough of a fan of it, like, you can tolerate it, like, you're sticking with the platform as your daily driver, and you still like it, so what is it about that? I mean, like, first of all, what would you like to see changed? And second of all, why are you not jumping ship? And don't say ecosystem lock-in, because that's a cop-out.
Who's gonna say that?
Ecosystem lock-in.
Oh, there it is.
I have 250 apps, out of which I own over 300. I've got 30 gigabytes of music, out of which I've purchased around, I don't know, like a half of it. I've got books, I've got movies. It's more of an ecosystem lockout, but probably, to be honest with you, let's just be frank about this. I hate the grid of icons. But when you were writing that piece, and as I was reading it yesterday, there was just one aspect that I didn't agree with, and it was the title, because iOS is not really yesterday's software, in my personal opinion. Okay. I feel, for example, Siri. I mean, try to compare Siri with S-Voice. You just can't.
No, but I mean, in the most literal sense, Siri is old. Like, Siri is yesterday's news because she came out on the 4S, right? That was a year ago. I mean, that's a long time.
Yeah, but the thing is, it'll still be not yesterday's hard software, since nobody else has been able to do it. S-Voice is trash. Google's voice search is getting better, but it's not there yet. So yes, Siri makes the operating system look new. But yes, if you have to ask me about the grid of icons, I hate them. I can't believe that Apple, at this point in time, 5 years later, they haven't figured out how to make those icons animated. I find it stupid that you have a clock icon that doesn't give you the time.
Exactly.
You've got a weather icon, and this is stupid. I've got this application called Celsius, which in the United States you can buy as Fahrenheit. And the only reason I buy it is because the badge at the top gives me the real temperature. And it's just stupid. I mean, how can iOS not do that?
Right.
It's always 73 degrees.
It's always 73
right.
in Cupertino.
And probably my biggest letdown, and this is true, is when I saw iOS 6 Beta 2 and I sent it to you, and I began looking at the update, and I saw that the settings icon began animating itself with the update. I was like, oh my God, okay, fine, we're not going to get widgets, but we're going to get animated icons. Fine, I could live with that. And then boom, that's my point ever since the beginning of this podcast. I love the iPhone 5's design. Yes, I do. I hate the software. iOS 6 is boring.
Yeah, you referred to it
extremely boring.
As like a Cadillac with a Buick's internals, I think you said in one of your pieces.
Exactly. That's what I said. We've got a Ferrari here in design and everything, and then we've got the interiors of a Buick.
I completely agree. Now, how is? I mean, Brandon, are you on the same page there, or are you? What's your thing?
Yeah, I am on the same page, and for me, it's about control, because I'm somewhat of a control freak in my life. My wife doesn't really like that about me, but so one of the reasons I feel like I use Android half the year and I use iOS the other half, and Windows phones like maybe for a month or two. I always come back to Android because I can control everything. So if I want to have my home screen give me my agenda with my battery percentage and a quick shortcut to call my wife, I can do that. I can do anything that I want. And then I take out my iPhone, and even if I wanted to, I couldn't make it look different. I can change the wallpaper, whoop-de-doo. I can add more folders, which open too slowly anyway, whoop-de-doo. I can move around the icons, but I can't even place them where I want because they're aligned to a left alignment grid.
Right.
So for me, it gets exhausting using the iPhone because that sense of control that I have just cannot be fulfilled.
Now,
because it's just,
can you do all that if you jailbreak?
Yeah,
not really. Not really. There are winter board options, but they're not great. Sadly,
jailbreaking's a dirty practice. And yeah, the winter board themes aren't great. I jailbroke my. Is that the right word? Yeah, I jailbroke my iPhone 4, and I did a series of videos showing some pretty cool stuff you could do. Like you can Androidify it a little bit, but what happens is because jailbreaking is even less supported than hacking Android. Things get slow fast, and then suddenly you don't get software updates, and it just gets dirty real fast.
Okay. Yeah, that is a good counterpoint, because I was definitely going to bring up the point that this is the same man who said to a listener, "Be a man and root your Android phone."
I wish jailbreaking was a better story in iOS, but it's just, last I checked, and it's been a while, maybe it's better, but you can control everything literally, but it just gets messy, dirty, and smelly really fast.
It's not, and I'll give you a couple of examples. I'm a multilingual guy. I speak English and Spanish, and for example, there are some stupid things on iOS that I'm like, why don't these guys fix it? Like, for example, I sometimes want Siri to work in Spanish. But if I want it to work in Spanish, I have to go with iOS 6, obviously. I have to go to settings and then switch the language. I mean, how could it be so difficult to put a stupid button on Siri that allows me to switch the language? That's, and just to be fair with iOS customers, okay, what things do I love about iOS? Try to read HTML email on Android. Nobody does email better than the iPhone. That's just a truth. Ooh. And it is. I mean, if you get HTML email on Android, you get a small portion of it, and then you have to pan around. And with the iPhone, you get everything centered. It's just smart.
That's true.
The messaging app is better. There are certain things about iOS that are superior. But again, as I posted in my editorial, I feel that, as Steve Jobs said, hey, when the iPhone came out, it was 5 years ahead of its time. The software was, and he was right. But the problem is those 5 years ended now. and when you've got something like Android 4.1 Jelly Bean, my God, I mean, with Jelly Bean, it just becomes difficult for iOS to compete like that.
Yeah, I was thinking that the other day. I was using the iPhone. I was on vacation recently, and I was using the iPhone because I love the camera and I love to be able to take pictures. They show up on my iPad. I get back to the hotel room. I can review them. But then right after I got back from my vacation, I used my Galaxy S3, which is Jelly Bean. And I'm used to going from the iPhone to an Android and being like, oh, this is not as smooth and not as nice. But like, that is not true anymore. Like you said, Jaime, Jelly Bean has fixed Android to make it as smooth and responsive as iOS.
And that's amazing, because that doesn't always happen. I feel like other platforms come out and you're like, wow, if only this were as smooth as, say, iOS. And then you kind of like wait through iteration after iteration, and it just never happens. And I think Project Butter is probably one of the most under-celebrated and significant developments in Android ever.
It's probably under-celebrated because it's on 1.2% of devices right now.
Very, very true. And yeah, that's a big Android problem. But you're absolutely right. Returning to an Android device that's running Jelly Bean, like I hop back and forth between my iPad and my Nexus 7. It is not at all the same experience as it used to be hopping back and forth between my iPad and, say, the touchpad running ICS, CM9, whatever. So I completely agree. And the other manufacturers, the other software developers, they're all bringing the heat, and Apple is going to be caught with its pants down if it stays with the concepts behind iOS as they are now for much longer. And I guess that's my question. I kind of want to know, we're nerds. We're talking about this from the standpoint of people who love this stuff and who talk about this stuff all day. When is the average Joe going to get fed up with boring iOS? Because it's not happening right now. I still talk to people left and right everywhere who are like, oh, you don't have an iPhone? But why? With this kind of sympathetic tone, like, I can't afford one, or maybe I'm stupid or something. It's like, no.
It's happening now. It's happening now. The Galaxy S3 is the best sold smartphone for last month. It's happening now. When had you ever seen Android sell 20 million phones in 100 days? It's happening now. And you know, it's just funny because I got this comment yesterday that was really good. It's probably the best comment I've ever read. And what the guy was saying was like, the reason why the iPhone is so successful is because the average Joe wants simplicity. And you know, the guy is right. The guy is right. I mean, I ask everybody, and everybody just wants something simple.
Just want it to work.
Exactly. They just want it to work. But then when you've got something like the Galaxy S3, that, first of all, the design is beautiful. Second of all, man, Samsung's marketing is probably the best piece of work that I've ever seen.
It's amazing.
They've got marketing everywhere. They've got billboards in bathrooms.
I think quantity, yes. Quantity-wise, I agree. Yeah.
They've got billboards in bathrooms. They've gone where marketing has never gone before.
It's very true.
And I feel that they're doing a great job in making Android relevant. They're doing a great job, and you know, it's product placement. It's what it's called in marketing. They're doing a great job, and it's been so well, and they've sold so many phones. And that's the point. I mean, the average Joe is no longer the average Joe. The average Joe evolved 5 years ago. No longer is the smartphone a niche product that's only based for geeks. Everybody has a smartphone now, and we said it in episode 007. We can't really impress anymore with a smartphone. Everybody's got maps. Right. Everybody's got apps. And so right now, everybody has a smartphone, and they have the choice of picking the biggest hype or the biggest what. You know, the iPhone is going to end up being yesterday's phone if Scott Forstall doesn't come out of his comfort zone.
There's one force here that I think we're underestimating, which is the fact that everyone has an iPhone. Let me explain. Another reason I like to use the iPhone half of the year is because all of my friends, all of my family literally have an iPhone, probably because I told them to get one. And what that means is that I can do things with them I cannot do with other people. I can iMessage them. I can now do shared photo stream. I can FaceTime them. I can do Find My Friends with them. All those four things really, really make it compelling for me to pick up and use an iPhone. And that's, I think, actually a missed opportunity for the iPhone 5. Yeah, iOS 6 has shared photo stream, so all those millions and millions of devices that are capable of having iOS 6 will be able to do that. I think that's an awesome feature, but I really think that Apple could have come up with some other interesting iPhone to iPhone technology, because finally it's not kind of pompous to do that. It's actually reasonable and valuable because so many people have the iPhone.
Mm-hmm. I think shared photo stream is going to go down. I mean, you've got Facebook already. What's the point?
That's what I was thinking yesterday. I was looking at the announcement. I've never used PhotoStream because I don't have that iOS ecosystem. So maybe I'm exactly the wrong kind of person to be thinking about that. But Brandon, you seem like the perfect example.
PhotoStream is the coolest thing ever, and shared PhotoStream. Yeah, you know, I think it is ridiculous that you can like a picture, you can put comments on it. That's kind of stupid because it's almost like the ping effect, right? Like we don't want another place to like and do stuff. We want to stay on Facebook and Twitter and whatever else.
And Apple doesn't know how to do social media. They've proved that more than once, so they should not be doing that. I agree.
They should not be doing it. But the fact that you know, Michael, imagine going to a bachelor party. All your friends have iPhones, and you guys are just like, you guys shoot pictures, and then they show up on your friend's phone, and then something fun, and it's no longer like, hey, look at the picture I took last night. It's like, I know, I saw it when I was walking back last night. You idiot! Look what you did at that crazy.
Right, and that's what Samsung is trying to do with whatever there is, the Buddy Share, one of the billions of features that they brought out with the Galaxy S3.
But where you have to tap your phone against someone else's phone?
No. It's a continuous stream. It's just like PhotoStream.
Oh,
yeah, but the problem is it's not across the entire Galaxy product portfolio. You have to have a Galaxy S3.
That's ridiculous.
At the moment, which is ridiculous. Even though it's selling so many millions and millions of units, it's still not enough to get that critical mass. And I think you're right. I think Apple has reached that point with the iPhone's, penetration, where it's like, oh yeah, they can actually start doing this and do this BlackBerry Messenger effect that worked so well for RIM back in the day, because they were sort of the only game in town. Even though there were other smartphones out there, BlackBerry was a much more prevalent choice.
The iPhone 5 is going to be successful, and it's going to be successful because, and I'm going to lay this on the table. Apple is showing everybody how you launch a product one more time. They have a release date. They have pre-order time, which is tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Ask anybody, when is the Lumia 920 going to be launched? Damn it. It just pisses me off. Every time you go to an event, they're like, when is the HTC One X going to come out? And they silently announced it in April. This is what really infuriates me of everybody else that's not Apple. The fact that I know when I can buy the phone, and I know what it costs, and I know what carriers are going to get it, and I know when it's going to be international, and which options do I get, and I know that from day one. So even if the Nokia Lumia 920 is a superior device when it comes to features and everything, people are not going to. People are not going to wait for it
because there's no defined period that they can say, okay, on this day I'll be able to buy it. Nobody knows.
Just think about it. It's the fall season. I mean, how many people do you think are going to be waiting to know whenever Nokia is going to be launching the product? They're not going to wait. And to be honest with you, this has nothing to do with Nokia. I feel that Nokia is not at fault here. I feel that it's Microsoft's fault. I mean, listen, Samsung could not feature the Ativa S in their announcement because the operating system was not ready. Right. And the same thing happened with Nokia. I mean, Adam was at the event, and they didn't even let him touch the device because the operating system was not ready. Mm-hmm. So, Nokia, if you're listening to this, please, I love Windows Phone, but you need to go Android if you want to succeed, man.
Oh, God, that made me feel bad inside.
Yeah, I just
Did you throw up in your mouth a little, Brandon?
I might have pooped a little.
Guys, come on. Microsoft has lost their edge. They're behaving like a government and not like a software company.
Yes, they are sluggish. They are crawling. They are ponderously huge, and they cannot become agile again to save their lives. I agree. Listen, we're already talking about it. Let's talk about it. We haven't even covered this, okay? The Nokia Lumia 820 and 920 were announced.
Wait a second. Before we move on to Windows Phone, I just have a question for you, too. What color of iPhone do you want?
Oh, that is so funny because I actually have a screen up right now with the two different colors because I'm trying to decide.
You're trying to decide, huh? Well, I'll tell you, I would get the white one because 40 billion people are going to have the black one, and I want the white one.
Let's see. That's funny you say that because I thought it would be the opposite. We did a poll yesterday. Let's see what the poll results say.
Yeah, what did the polls say? I didn't put this in the outline because, I'm glad that you brought it up, Jaime.
It seems like black is the winner in terms of the Pocketnow.
Conformists.
Okay, I'm getting the white one, by the way. That's me.
Me too.
I feel the black one's cool. It's like if we're comparing a Ferrari with a Mercedes. It's just the black one looks futuristic, but the white one looks elegant.
That's not why you're getting the white one. You're getting the white one because it photographs better.
What? Oh yeah, that's true.
Well, to be honest with you, yes, it's much easier to film a white phone on a review than a black one. No, yes, that's another point.
Another point. No. I agree. I think the white one is elegant. I think that is a nice word. I feel like we had a post that was like, was it you, Jaime? It was kind of like lambasting other people for their endless praises of the hardware. But I feel like elegant is exactly the right word for this kind of thing.
Yeah. I think that's it.
Hey, guys, before we move on, I just want to bring up one more thing with the iPhone 5.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Something that I don't think anyone's really talking about, but I think it's an interesting story. So Apple tends to pay attention to things that normally are skipped over. Let me give you an example. The MagSafe adapter. I mean, previous to that, people had these clunky adapters that if you tripped over it, your whole computer would come crashing to the ground. It would be difficult to put it into the hole. No, that's what she said. Jokes, please. But Apple did something very interesting yesterday. They reinvented a little bit the included cheapo earbuds. They're no longer cheapo. They're a $29 accessory called EarPods that have been engineered and studied over time. And it's just really interesting. They kind of decommoditized the earbud for a sec.
Yeah, they did. And I think that is significant. Go ahead, Jaime. I mean, I'm looking forward to trying them out. I have no opinion on them yet.
For the record, the current earbuds before those EarPods cost $29 just the same.
Interesting.
And they are cheapo. For me, the EarPods, I'd like to try to believe. I just want to try them out. But for me, these Apple earplugs, which I'm actually using for this podcast, because they've got a good microphone. Or at least they try. But, they're good. I just like the controls. That's the only thing I like. That's all I'm looking for because their quality is, I wish Tony was here because he hates them.
I hate them too. I don't mind the earbuds themselves, but, the control module on the wire is the perfect example of Apple taking form over function way too far. because it is this beautifully squared off little button module on the wire, but it looks great. But you wear a shirt with a collar, and that thing is getting hung up all the time on your right side collar, and it's like popping out your ear button. It's the most annoying thing. And then Samsung, having learned nothing and forgotten nothing about copying other people's BS, does exactly the same thing on the set of earphones I'm currently wearing, and I am wearing a collared shirt like I usually do, and just every time I turn my head, it's like bam, and just rips it out of my ear. It's stupid. So it looks like the new EarPods have tapered that design a little bit, and that's probably what I'm most excited about with the new EarPods.
Yeah,
We'll see.
It's funny. We're using the same headphones, Michael. Are yours white too?
Yeah,
Samsung white from the Galaxy S3.
Yep.
Yeah. So what's sort of interesting to take this one step further for a sec is that there's this whole huge industry for really high-end earbuds or earphones, but it's really intimidating because they can get $300 or $400. They have very fancy acoustics that only audiophiles can really understand, and Apple sort of has brought that to the masses and has sort of redefined something that we all take for granted. These white earbuds that come in with every iPhone. Now they're potentially much better, although some people that were trying them on some of the other tech sites said that they were definitely better, but not like the $300 headphones that you can get if you do enough research.
They're not made by Bose. That's what they said.
They're not made by Bose. Although I think true audiophiles don't use Bose products. I think they use.
Right, but go ahead.
I've got a Bluetooth pair of Sennheiser headphones that are for audiophiles, or at least audiophiles who can tolerate Bluetooth stereo, and they screw up all the time. So I have no faith or trust in or loyalty to any sound hardware designer right now because I've just had horrible luck with all of them.
I don't know. You want me to say something about headphones? I'm just surprised that Apple. I'm just surprised that Apple is not using a wireless headset. If their headset is trashy anyways, it's trashy. So why not make it wireless and make some use of Bluetooth 4.0? I don't know. Can they make a better protocol or something? I don't know. They could have done that with the iPhone 5 and they didn't. Sadly.
That's a really good point actually. Apple loves redesigning and reinventing stuff and then re-releasing it in a better form. And Bluetooth, wireless audio desperately needs that because Bluetooth as a protocol for it, in my opinion, is not very good. I'm always dropping the connection. Pairing is always not necessarily difficult, but at least cumbersome. There's so many better ways to do it, and nobody's done it yet because for some reason we're all married to having these tethers between our ears and the thing in our pocket that gets hung up on seat belts and doorknobs and shirt collars, and I am so fed up with wires. And speaking of which, and this is the last thing I want to say about the iPhone 5 for me, you guys keep talking about it, but the fact that we didn't get wireless charging, I know nobody else cares. I know nobody cares. But the fact that Nokia is rolling it out for their new devices is awesome. The fact that Apple couldn't build that in and also didn't include NFC, another wireless standard that I really like, I was endlessly disappointed by both of those things.
You want me to tell you something about wireless charging?
So badly, yes.
Okay, whenever the charger is smaller than the phone, I'll probably like it.
Well, hold on. That happened in 2009. Shall I send you my Palm Pre?
Listen, come on. I've got the Pre 3, man, and that rock, that charger rock that it included is like, come on. What's the point of a wireless charger if the charging port is going to be so big?
Wait, it's not big.
Is it something you're going to be carrying in your bag if it's so big?
It's voluminous. If that's a word.
It's not. Yeah, it is. It's a great word. No, but it's not. That's not the point of the wireless charging dock. Those live at home, and when you travel, you take your USB cable with you, and then you're reminded of how convenient it is to have your wireless charging at home. I mean, have you ever used wireless charging on your daily driver, Jaime? Not a Pre 3 that's that you don't use.
No, not really. And to be honest with you,
it's amazing.
The reason is this: before I worked at Pocketnow, I used to work in airlines, and I did that for 15 years. Wow. And for me, the size of for me, I travel light. So I am the type of guy that looks for the smallest accessories possible. And if you ask me the question, would I ever spend a dime on a wireless charger? My answer would be no.
Even if something like you left at home, like it's not something you would bring with you?
No, because I'd have to buy it, And then why would I buy another wireless charger when I could just use the same wire? It'll do the same job.
It does the same job, but poorly. Like, why would I buy an iPhone when I can just buy a Samsung, Transform Ultra? I mean, ultimately they do the same job. You know what I mean? Like, one of them does it better. I feel like, I don't know. Here we go. Jaime, I owe you about 42 beers for all the favors you've done me. So I think instead of those, I'm gonna get you a wireless charger for a device of yours. And I'm going to ask you to use it for 2 weeks, and then we'll want to revisit this conversation.
Is there a sleeve you can put on the iPhone 4S that makes it work with a wireless charging system?
Yeah, I think
there is, and it's terrible. It's the Power Mat, but it's just so big. You're like, why? And this is the problem. Lame. I feel this is the problem when companies don't really understand what enables a product. What enables a mobile phone is for it to be light, portable, and easy to carry around. What enables a charger is for it to be unintrusive. So when you have a charger that's bigger or the same size as the phone, why would people ever want to buy the separate thing? Now, if you include the wireless charger in the box, people are going to use it. But nobody in their right mind would ever buy it separately. That's
people did it. They were sold out on launch weekend for the Pre. I mean, people will. There is a market for this, and it is a cool thing, particularly if you build in like location-aware features into it, which is also really cool, like tactiles that Samsung is doing. But I don't know. We should. Can I do this now? Can I do this Nokia Lumia?
No, not yet. One more thing.
Of course not.
One more thing. I think it's, Apple solved a big problem with the Lightning charging thing, and I think it's very unfortunate and frustrating that once again they've invented a new standard, especially now that we have to use that heinous, expensive, stupid converter adapter. Yeah. But I think it's really damn cool that you can plug in the iPhone either right side up or upside down, because so many times I've maybe fumbled at coming home from a night, a night out. I don't know what I'm doing for certain reasons, and I try to plug in the charger to my iPhone, and I like miss it because you have to look at it to see the little line to know you're on the top. Right. Yeah, and that sucks. And micro USB is sort of the same way, although for some reason that's easier. I don't know why, but with this Lightning thing, you don't even have to think about it. You just
So my only gripe with Lightning, is the fact that I've got an iTrip, I've got so many docks, and that I wish that adapter would have a way of making the phone stand or something, because for me all my accessories are pretty much obsolete as of yesterday.
Yeah. No, it's true. But
I'm not going to use the accessory. That's it.
What's an even cooler way of docking things and transferring things and doing stuff is like wirelessly, which a company out of Finland, Nokia, has done.
Okay, let's move on to Nokia.
Oh,
fine.
Thank God. Okay. This is important because there are some parallels here with the iPhone launch, and so we can still kind of tie in Apple to this because this is huge news, but. The Nokia announcement happened on September 5th, which I think I was in the middle of flying back from Berlin, and we had Adam covering the event in New York City. Nokia released, as everyone knows, the Nokia Lumia 820 and 920, their new Windows Phone 8 handsets, which for me are just endlessly more exciting than the iPhone launch because Nokia has done some different stuff. We've just discussed the wireless charging, obviously. They're doing the polycarbonate thing, but they're doing this kind of like super glazed coating on it, which I don't necessarily like. There's what is this? It's 32 gigs of internal storage on the 920. They're calling the camera Pure View, which we would need to talk about because I think that's a total train wreck. What I want to ask, I mean, how does your excitement level between the two devices compare? Jaime, I think I know your answer, but I do want to have you answer anyway. But Brandon, you use Windows phones maybe 2 months out of the year, you said? And
yeah.
What's your situation on this? Because I am really excited about the 920. I'm glad the 820 is there, but the 920 is obviously where my focus is. I don't know. Tell me what your feeling is on this.
I kind of have always liked Windows Phone because for me, it's got the reliability, the simplicity, and the smoothness of iOS, but it gives you a little bit of that Androidness by allowing you to customize your home screen. And, you know, I thought Windows Phone 8 was pretty brilliant in allowing you to have multiple resizable tiles, although you could argue that's not that brilliant. That's just a reasonable thing to do. The Lumia 920 is really sweet-looking hardware. The fact that that screen is so high resolution, it's AMOLED, it's got a dual-core processor, it's got Windows Phone 8, and by the way, something that I didn't realize until recently is in Windows Phone 8, you lose the right-facing arrow button on your home screen, allowing you to have wider, basically
that column isn't used up by the black. Yeah.
Exactly. Which makes the home screen, I think, much more usable and beautiful. I think this is just going to be such a beautiful experience and a beautiful phone, and I'm so excited about it. And I love what they did with the 820 with the removable back, because it's not like a gimmicky skin that goes on top of something. It's like the actual backing of the device that you can change out, and I think that's cool, because I think it gets boring when you have the same, phone for 2 years, and maybe one day you decide I want it to be yellow tonight because I want it to match my my tuxedo.
Yellow tuxedo. That's gonna be nice.
It will be. But yeah, I am really excited about the 920. I think it's just so premium looking. The software is going to be amazing, and I can't wait to try it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I admire bold moves, and Nokia didn't depart too much from their Lumia 900 design with this, but they've made some significant changes and some feature additions that are really important now. Yeah, exactly. Jaime, what's your feeling on this? Would you carry one of these as somebody, as an average guy?
For the record, I will buy a 920.
You will?
Yes, I'll look for it in white and I'll buy one. I do, the camera, the screen, the design of the phone is just beautiful. I like it. I really do. My biggest problem with Windows Phone is that you've got a really genius operating system. It looks really good, but I would always get pissed off at taking a photograph. I would never be able to get a good photograph on any Windows Phone that I've used.
Why? Because of the software?
Yeah, I mean, not even on the Titan, not on the Dell Venue Pro. Always the photos are either moved or something, and you had that same experience with the Lumia 900.
Well, the Lumia 900 had really horrible optics, but I used a Samsung Focus for a number of months, and I got some really good photos out of that one.
Me too.
Well, okay, that's what I was about to tell you. That's pre-Mango. For some reason, photos on Windows Phone were great before Mango, and I don't know what happened after Mango.
That's interesting. I mean, I think I was running Mango on the Focus when I was cross country. But so you think that there was a serious software tweak that really jacked up Windows Phone's camera software?
but as of the operating system, so I really have high expectancies for the Lumia. I do want the Lumia 920. That's me. The design is pretty much the culmination of what the Lumia was from the beginning, and this is like, okay, this is the perfected product. Here you go. And I feel that they've got a hit there. Sadly, on the other side, I feel that the 820 is what the 920 should have been. Because, who's going to buy a 920? The 920 is going to be bought by power users. And the irony is that you get expandable storage on the 820 that you don't get on the 920. And then one of the things that I used to love about HTC design, for example, is that you could remove the whole backplate in order to leave only the screen and then just switch the backplate. So if the phone fell off your hands and you got it dented or something, all you had to do was buy a backplate and you have a new phone. So that's another thing that I like about the 820. And I feel that if they would have brought the elements of the 820 when it came to, expandable storage and everything to the 920, it would have been a much better product.
Do you think that as far as people buying it, you actually bring up an interesting question in my mind. Do you think that carriers will, that Nokia and Microsoft will strike another deal with carriers to get them to so heavily subsidize these like AT&T did with the 900? Do you think there's going to be that really high focus push?
I hope, but what they did with the Lumia 900 was a mistake, because they priced it so aggressively that people have the opinion of the Lumia 900 being cheap.
I mean, I see how that could be possible. I don't know. I mean, they sold a lot. Didn't they sell like 4 million in 2 months or something?
No, they didn't get that far. They didn't get that far. But listen, the point is...
Lumia phones, not Lumia 900. Sorry, yeah, that was the Lumia family.
I'm talking specifically of the Lumia 900.
Okay.
And, just to make a point, I feel that Nokia has a really great product. It is the culmination of what they were supposed to do years ago. Mm-hmm. And, this is the Nokia that I remember. By the way, for the record, my first 4 cell phones that I've ever owned were Nokia. I was a Nokia all the way, a full Nokia customer. And I'm just glad to see Nokia come back to its roots of design and just the whole package looking as great as it does. My only disappointment is that I don't know when it's going to launch, and I'm not going to wait for it. That's just me.
Brandon?
I think the Lumia 900 was a badly timed device. It came out, when did it come out?
CES.
CES. When was it actually available for sale?
Shoot. I think it was
March
2 months later. Yeah, 2 months later.
Yeah. It was in the spring, as I recall. Maybe later than that.
It was a strange time. They discounted it too quickly. The Galaxy S3 was coming out and was announced shortly thereafter. It was just stomped on. Windows Phone 8 was announced, and then the horrible news that Windows Phone 8 would not be capable of running on the flagship Windows Phone. It was just a lot of bad timing for the Lumia 900, which I think if Microsoft was a little bit better at executing in terms of software releases and planning and such, I think it could have been a lot bigger. But there was just so much against it.
I want to ask you guys a question, if you don't mind. And this is a personal question. I like Windows Phone, and I know you guys do. But have you ever done the exercise of trying to give Windows Phone to either a child or a senior citizen or an average user, and asking them what they think about the operating system?
I gave it to them. They got smoked by it. It just smoked them right away.
No, seriously, because I gave my grandfather a couple of months ago. I gave him my Nexus 1. And even though it was complicated for him to learn Android, the advantage of the skeuomorphs in the design just made everything easy for him to learn the operating system. And so did I give my father an Android phone last week, and he just liked it. But the problem is that I showed my father both the Dell Venue Pro and I showed him the HTC Sensation. And I asked him, which one do you like the most? And he was like, I don't know, I find the HTC device better, he was like. And I just find that the problem with Windows Phone, and this is probably going to happen to the Lumia 920 also, is, Microsoft is just so blind with their Metro UI that they don't really know if people like it or not. It hasn't really sold in 2 years. So do you guys think that it's going to succeed? Because I don't think it is, sadly.
I mean, if you're talking to me about like my gut feeling and stuff, I mean, I have very serious concerns about Windows Phone's future, not because of Microsoft's lack of trying. I think they're going to keep throwing money at it until it succeeds. But that also might require some changes. I don't know if Metro's a winning ticket. I think Metro is so advanced. It's such a strange, unique combination of retro and futuristic that I'm not sure it will be accessible to most people. I remember the looks I used to get, though, when I was at bars with my Focus, and I'd have it out on the table and it would light up for some reason. People would be like, "Oh my God, what is that? Is that true? That's not Android, is it?" So it got people's attention, and people did seem to like it in their time with it because also that device happened to be very responsive, like most Windows Phone devices. So it has the ingredients for success. I'm not sure. I don't think I would ever advocate it to my parents, no, or to my grandparents or anything like that. I don't think it's necessarily what is our metric on the reviews? Our granny user.
A granny user, yeah. And probably the example is not the correct one. What I'm trying to say is, so far what I've noticed is that the average user doesn't like Windows Phone. Mm-hmm. It could probably change once Windows 8 is out and everybody's forced to use Metro, whether they like it or not. But so far, it hasn't been the case. So I do feel that the Lumia is going to be a great product. I just don't feel it's going to get the push that it deserves. And just by the experience of what happened to the Lumia 900, it had all the marketing in the world, and still the phone didn't sell.
So
I think that's unfair to say. First, I don't think we have enough data to say it didn't sell. I know it didn't blow up the market, but I think it sold.
Oh, trust me. If it would have sold, they would have told you it sold.
Well, well, that's true, but I don't think it was a sales disaster. But go ahead,
No,
Brandon.
it wasn't. Brandon, come on.
Come on. So I am reminded of have either of you ever taken a microeconomics class?
Oh man, I take it all the time.
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Where they talk about sort of different kinds of if you have multiple companies, there's an oligopoly. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Oh yes.
But it turns out that in almost every major industry, there's a leader, then there's someone close behind, and then there's usually a distant third, but a very important distant third that matters because people like to root for the underdog. And usually the distant third has an interesting product. It's just that there's some barrier to entry. Maybe the first two were first, or they have a lower price or something like that. And I think the same is going to exist for a while in the mobile phone industry, where there's going to be iOS, Android, and a distant third Windows Phone for the foreseeable future until Microsoft decides that it's not making money for them and they need to pull the plug. Which I don't think that they're going to do that for the foreseeable future, because mobile is so important that Microsoft, with its infinite amount of cash, is going to do whatever it takes to keep this thing going. And another thing is that the Windows Phone, it's not like it's bad. It's a good product, and I think we all agree that at the end of the day, it's a good product. It's compelling. Yeah. It's different. Yeah. So I don't have that same gut feeling that you do, Michael, that Windows Phone is not going to survive the test of time, because I think the sort of the way that these industries kind of shape up, plus the fact that they have a good product is very much bodes well for Microsoft.
That's a very good point. And to be completely fair, I was not thinking about Windows 8, which I played with extensively at IFA on tablets, on convertibles, on computers. And once Microsoft manages to kind of force Metro, what used to be called Metro design language, into the minds of the consumers through Windows, which is still a very powerful desktop influence, I think that will drive adoption of Windows phones, because they're both, for now, they're, finally, they're very cool. Vista was definitely not cool. Windows 7 was much better. People like it, but I think it suffered from Vista's kind of stink a little bit. And as a result, Windows has been a bad word even in the mobile space. When people say, oh, it's a Windows? Oh, and well, no, I don't think I want to go near that. But now, once Windows 8 kind of gains ground, which it will do very quickly, that may help Windows Phone a lot.
Now, tell me, Mr. Zune Pass customer Brandon Miniman, what do you think of all this? Because I have 60 ebooks from Microsoft Reader that I lost when Microsoft ditched Windows Mobile, and I didn't get an Amazon gift card or anything to compensate for the money that I lost. So, I mean, this is my problem with Microsoft. Just like they just ditched the Zune, and they're ditching the Zune software and the Zune Pass, and every song that everybody purchased, when they move on to a new computer, they're going to lose everything. So do you trust Microsoft? Because I've lost complete faith in them. That's my problem.
That is such a good question.
It is.
I think Microsoft has broken trust too many times to be trustworthy. So I'm going to say that I don't really trust Microsoft for me to invest in their content offering, for example, or their music offering. But we're talking about this notion of a desktop operating system helping to sell a mobile operating system. And I'm really thinking about this, and I don't think there's any precedent for this where this has happened before. And, on one hand, you could argue that, yeah, people are going to get Windows 8. They're going to be like, I got these tiles. Can I have a phone that's got these tiles? And then they get the Windows Phone 8. And then you could argue that no one's going to care because the iPhone 6 will be awesome and the Galaxy S5 is going to be awesome.
Right.
Do you guys think that this is going to be a legitimate force to sell Windows Phone 8 devices? The fact that Windows 8 is kind of out of that same vein?
No, I don't think that it's going to originate from that kind of thinking where it's like, oh wow, this desktop thing is awesome, I want it on my phone. I think it's more the case that people are going to see the phones in the stores and say, oh yes, I recognize this, so I'm inherently a little more comfortable with it than is the case now, where they don't see that design language anywhere else, and it's like, what's this weird thing? And depending on the personality type, then either they go up to it, or much more often they're like, no, this is unfamiliar to me and I'm frightened. and then they go and touch a Galaxy S3, and then everybody has an orgasm.
Wouldn't that person walk up to an iPhone 6 or whatever and say, "Oh, I absolutely know this interface. My friends, I had the first iPhone, blah blah blah." Isn't it the same effect?
Yeah, well, and I think exactly so. Yeah, familiarity just reinforces itself, and which is why changing iOS would be a giant risk that I don't think they're willing to take.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah. We're running a little tight on time, guys. I do want to get to Android before we kind of sign out, which won't take very long. But do you have some parting thoughts on the Nokia stuff, on Windows Phone stuff in general?
Nope.
I do. Good. I do.
Yeah, hit it, Howie.
That gorgeous PureView ad that Anton discovered.
Oh wait, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That made it to the Wall Street Journal, by the way. And
my God! It was just funny because everybody was like, "Man, this was found on The Verge," and I'm like, "Yeah, right. We published it like an hour earlier."
Yeah. Who was it? Was it
Tony? That was Tony. Tony noticed.
No,
that.
on Twitter, it was like Joe from. Somebody from Gizmodo, I think,
this
was
guy
like...
the editor-in-chief from Gizmodo was like, wait a second,
like,
The Verge,
hey,
come on.
Hey, guys, Verge, good job, but Pocketnow had it 3 hours earlier.
Exactly. Now, The Verge was nice enough to build a video on it. It was really good, but, man, forget about who discovered it. I mean...
Of course, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. What matters here is this. Every company uses deceptive marketing. I mean, Kellogg's uses... glue instead of milk to make their cereal look beautiful.
Ads, yeah.
Yeah, they use that. And Apple uses that. I mean, whenever they try to make the iPhone 3G look fast, those ads were terrible. They were even banned in the UK. What was good about whatever Apple did was the fact that they were smart enough to not get caught at it. Meaning even though the UK banned the ads, they weren't stupid enough to film, the editor just slicing the video in part. And, since I edit our videos at Pocketnow, I just find it incredibly amusing that this ad passed by everybody in the Nokia VP and CEO department, and nobody could notice that they were trying to show the world what the PureView camera was going to be with a DSLR.
Yeah. And which was plainly visible in a van window reflection on the commercial, listeners, if you haven't seen this.
It's like, how are you not going to bring optical stabilization to a van and a DSLR?
Right. And Nokia actually made a press release, I think, yesterday where they said they're conducting kind of this like company-wide ethics review. And I was like, okay, listen, whatever. You guys, this blew up in your face. You don't have to like overcompensate. But I didn't realize that they were doing that in response to not just this flap, but also some of the pictures they purported to be from the Lumia 920 were not actually from the Lumia 920. Is that correct?
Yeah. That was discovered by The Verge. They actually have photos of when that portion of the video was being filmed, and you can see that the photos were being taken by a bigger camera.
Ah. Wow.
So, my point with this, and for all those, I can imagine the YouTube comments right now. They're going crazy.
Oh, they're just exploding all over the place. How dare!
They're hating my. That's right.
Oh
but,
my God, Rivera's crazy.
Okay, to be fair, right here, I am going to buy the Lumia 920, even if the ads totally blew the product. Yes. I feel that if Nokia did not have a finalized product that they could use for the ads, all they had to do was do the Apple thing, where Apple only tells you that it's a great camera, but they don't really try to show you. They don't really try to point out that they're filming this with a camera when they're not.
Right.
All they had to do was say, this is going to be a great camera, and I would have believed it and I would have bought it. They did not need to lie. And that's where they screwed up.
But where and finally, in that same vein with the PureView stuff, do you think, very briefly, that they have diminished the PureView brand with this camera? Yeah,
they have.
I agree. I completely agree. I think there was a big misstep to put the PureView, because I used a PureView. I used Tony's PureView. He wrote a great editorial on this. In Berlin, I was like, this is an amazing camera, as we all know. And when Nokia releases their Windows Phone 8 with a PureView camera, I'm buying it. And then they announced the 920 with its 8-megapixel shooter with, some great stuff. And everyone's kind of kicking us for judging this thing before we've used it. And I get it. And doubtless the pictures will be very nice. They're not going to be what PureView gave us in the first product, in the 808. And that is a big problem for them.
Wait a sec. You guys are forgetting some things about the PureView. Michael, you are in a unique situation because you got to use one, and you've also spent a lot of time with a guy. I hope Tony doesn't listen to this podcast. He's going to kill me. With a guy that thinks that the PureView 808 is the most amazing piece of technology to ever grace this world. And you know what? I've seen the pictures, and they are damn good.
They're amazing.
It takes really good pictures. But the fact is that the PureView brand doesn't have the notoriety that we're assuming it to have. For a lot of people in the U.S., they're hearing the word PureView for a very long time, and they have no idea that it's associated with a 41-megapixel super camera phone. And if PureView to them means that it takes above-average pictures, which it looks like the 920 is capable of, then that's a win for the PureView brand here in the United States. Maybe in Europe there will be people crying, like Tony, because this is not PureView.
Well, that's a very good point. That's a solid point. PureView is a brand that many people in the States will be hearing for the first time, as a matter of fact.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Good point.
It is a good point. We'll have to see how that plays out. I want to talk about that more in depth at a later time. We're running
Android.
a bit over, and let's just cover Android.
Can I say something about Android before he gets started?
I would love it if you did.
So, question: what is the worst? What's bad? What's the worst thing about the Nexus 7?
The screen.
Yes. Okay. So, Kindle announced this Kindle Fire HD recently, and there's a couple of early reviews in that say that this tablet, which has the same screen resolution, about the same size, about the same specs in terms of raw processing power, has a far, far superior screen to the Nexus 7. And it's the same price, but you get double the storage. Here's what I think. And I've kind of had to deal with this issue recently because I pre-ordered one to review on Pocketnow, and then I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do after this? Should I sell it? Should I give it to my mother? I'm going to root the sucker and put Jelly Bean on it and make the Nexus 7 the way it should have been in the beginning. It's going to have a beautiful screen, apparently. It's going to be fast, and it's not, I don't agree that the Kindle Fire HD should be saddled with Amazon's version of Android. I mean, I think it's great for mom and dad, but it's not great for Brandon and Jaime and Michael. So I suddenly think that if people out there are looking at the Nexus 7 for $199 with 8 gigabytes of storage, they should look at the Kindle Fire HD for $199 with 16 gigs of storage and, plan on rooting it and putting stock Jelly Bean on it.
I know the screen is bad. Everyone says the screen is bad on the Nexus 7, and I believe it. I know the reds are more like pinks, and it's kind of like looking at a pastel drawing. But I use the thing all the time, and I feel like I maybe am the closest to the average consumer on the team when it comes to displays. I never notice. And I watch stuff on that thing all the time, and
I'm surprised you say that because you have an iPad 3, Michael, right?
Yeah.
But ever since I got the Nexus 7, I never use it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. The only reason why I love the Nexus 7, and I'll be honest with you, is because I've got a 64 gigabyte 4G Verizon iPad, which cost $1,000. So if I get mugged with that thing, I am going to cry. But if I get mugged with the Nexus 7 that cost me $200, it's not really going to hurt. And I love the convenience of the 7-inch tablet. And listen, by the way, this is an Amazon Prime customer that's going to talk right now. I like the Kindle Fire HD, yes. The only problem I have with it is that it's an Amazon terminal. And by terminal, and this was actually taught to me by a reader in a comment, is a terminal is just a blank screen that's nothing without its content. And the problem with the Kindle Fire is that if you're not an Amazon customer, you've got nothing.
Yeah.
As opposed to the Nexus 7, you can do whatever you want with it. So unless you're willing to root that thing, go with the Nexus 7. That's my opinion.
Exactly. I completely agree. Yeah, no, I'm bored to tears by the Kindle Fire stuff.
I'm just that's the word. I'm bored with it.
Tell you what, guys, when I when I root the Kindle Fire HD 7-inch, I'm going to make an awesome video tutorial so that there's no excuse for anybody to suffer with a pastel screen.
Please.
Listen,
I will wait for that first.
My experience, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, I used a Kindle Fire on and off for a few months. It was exciting. I was like, okay, whatever, this is cool at this price point. When I used the Nexus 7 and I saw what Android could be at that form factor, I never gave the Kindle Fire another thought, and I don't want to again.
The original Kindle Fire was terrible anyway.
Yeah,
I mean, it was slow as can be.
It was.
It looked like a playbook.
It basically, yeah. Anyway.
Let's move on.
That is not the big news of the week in the Android world. Motorola dropped a Razr bomb on us, and that's pretty awesome.
I was about to say, are those big news actually?
They are. I mean, like, all right, maybe they're not. I want them to be big news so badly. I love the Razr line. I love that Motorola resurrected the Razr brand with products that are actually, notable. Because the original Droid RAZR was notable for its thinness, the Razr Max obviously for its battery life, and there wasn't a mid-tier Razr category until now, and that's the Razr M, which I just recently reviewed. Jaime cut that video together, so he's fully informed as to my feelings on the Razr M, and so are you listeners if you've read the review. I think Motorola's got a really nice trio here, and I think that for a company that was acquired by Google and which is still getting integrated, it's kind of cool to see their slow, quiet progress toward a really awesome stock Android experience on the software side. And when you mate that with hardware that is as good as the Razr's hardware is, I think it's really exciting for Android as a whole. And considering the disappointment that I had with Motorola earlier in the year with the Atrix HD and then the Photon Q, which I liked, but which, just is not terribly remarkable, the Razr line, I think says good things about the future of Motorola with Android. So, I mean, what do you guys think?
I just hate the fact that it's stuck on Verizon.
I mean, but they'll bring it international like they did with the original Razr and the Max.
Yeah. But speaking in the opinion of, for example, U.S. customers, I mean, the Atrix HD was like the variant of the Razr coming to AT&T. It was like the first iteration. To be honest with you, when we posted the news that the Atrix was coming out, I immediately called Brandon and I was like, I want to review that phone. And the reason why I wanted to review that phone is because ever since before I started using HTC products, all my phones were Motorola. I've been a Motorola customer before that and after Nokia. Right. And I just wanted a Motorola smartphone because of the nano coating, because of the Kevlar.
Yeah.
It's a strong phone. I love the design.
Awesome hardware.
Everything was great until I turned the thing on.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh my God! Enough said.
Okay. The screen, Michael. You can agree
on the Atrix HD.
The screen was beautiful. Yeah, I love the screen. Yeah. On the Atrix HD, yes, I did love it. But the problem is that the software is sluggish.
Well, on the Atrix it is, but on the Razr M at least they corrected that. On the Photon they corrected it, but on the Razr M they corrected it and went beyond that, and it's very, very responsive and very reliable. And it's not even finished. It's not even final software.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is this. The problem with Motorola's products is that they killed their brand with Moto Blur. It was just so sluggish and stupid that even though the Droid was popular, ask any of the previous Droid customers if they're using one right now. Everybody's using a Galaxy S3 now.
What?
I don't know. Verizon. I think Verizon is the carrier that has sold more Galaxy S3s than any other carrier in the United States, and that's because even though the Droid brand is great, nobody's using any other Motorola Droid. I feel that they just killed the branding. That's my personal opinion. What? I feel that their design is great. And this is like with the Sony thing that I wrote recently. Mm-hmm. Man, these guys had come out with this beautiful design, great phones, but then the software portion of the company doesn't know the hardware guys.
Right.
And they come with terrible software. That's my point.
Yeah, well, I think that was the case with Motorola. I think there was a gap between the Droid X and the Droid X2 and then something else interesting. But no, with the Razr family and the new software especially as we saw in the M, no, I think Motorola is in a really great place and they're only going to go up. I mean, I've been I was prepared to be disappointed now twice in a row with Motorola, where it's like, okay, well, after this bad experience, but no, I think they're on point, and it's only going to get better.
I just want to say that the first company to make a true edge-to-edge phone is going to become very, very wealthy, because it's amazing how much buzz the rumor caught on that Motorola was going to announce this edge-to-edge screen, and that's like a unicorn feature, right? Something that we may never see. It's going to be so futuristic, and I'm of the opinion that it won't be that great of a phone because you'll have so many mispresses, it'll be ridiculous. But the first company to make an edge-to-edge phone screen is going to they're going to do something. They're just going to make a lot of money with it.
And you're right. And the Razr M is still, like, Motorola had to figure out a way to make this mid-range offering, like, stand out. So I think they kind of went with it's sort of like an edge-to-edge screen. Look at our thin bezel.
And by the way, for our listeners, if it's hard with the Razr M. If you have not really held the phone or seen it, I do recommend that you go to Michael's review and look at his photography of the phone, because the phone is a lot prettier than it looks.
Yes, it is.
It is really pretty. I mean, I think that Motorola, they screwed up with the screen, making a QVGA. What is it? QHD.
QHD. Yeah.
They screwed up with the screen, but then everything else of that phone looks gorgeous. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, and it's great. Actually, Brandon just asked me what I was going to do with it, and I'm like, I'm going to hold on to it as long as possible because it's so good on the hardware side. And yeah, no, I agree. I think the edge-to-edge thing was it's definitely a stretch. I think, but if Motorola is able to snag that much buzz with releasing a not really edge-to-edge screen, just suggesting that maybe it's close, then yeah, you're right. The first company that's able to actually do it is really going to benefit for a very short time until the returns start happening because of all the false taps. Let's move on to our 2-minute concluding bit, gentlemen. We're not going to get to listener mail today, unfortunately, because we're running very long because of a very long news week. I want to ask each of you, starting with Brandon, if you could choose only one device for your daily driver, what would you select? And we're talking about using it like for an extended period of time, like 6 months at least. Would you buy one of the new Lumias, one of the new Droid RAZRs, or the iPhone 5, and why?
Oh my goodness. Well, that's pretty easy. I'd say the iPhone 5, because I know what to expect. I know that over time the iPhone 5 is extraordinarily reliable. It takes great pictures. I'm not going to talk about all the merits of the iPhone 5. I choose the iPhone 5 because it's trusty, and it's great quality. And I maybe in 2 months from now, when I actually get to use a Lumia 920, I would change my answer, but I can't because I haven't actually used it. So definitely the iPhone 5.
You haven't used the iPhone 5 either, but I like your answer. That's good.
I kind of know what to expect though with the iPhone. You know what I mean? Like the Lumia 920 is very different.
I'm just giving you a hard time. Yeah, absolutely. Great. We have one for the iPhone 5. I'm sure Jaime, just like Apple, is going to come out from left field and surprise everyone with his answer. Jaime, please.
The iPhone 5, and the only reason again is I'm really locked up in the ecosystem. I've got 3 Macs, 2 Apple TVs. I've got a time capsule at home. It's just the next way to go for me. I mean, I find it really annoying that that's the way the ecosystem works. They want to lock you into it. But, going forward to what Brandon says, and by the way, I carry 2 phones as my daily driver. So usually it's an Android phone or a Windows phone and the iPhone. And the reason why the iPhone is always with me is because it makes me not need to carry a camera where I go or to carry a music player where I go, because I've got everything there. And that's probably it. Whenever somebody comes out with a smartphone that has, and actually there is, the Galaxy S3 has a great camera, but I don't have one. But if I would have a Galaxy S3, I would leave the iPhone at home. But since I don't, and obviously now everything's about the iPhone 5, then yes, the iPhone 5 is the next.
Okay. That's a good answer. And actually, I'm glad you mentioned the Galaxy S3, because I do carry a GS3 as my daily driver since I busted my Nexus, and it does serve as all that for me, and it does really well, especially the camera. I love the camera. My answer, and I will keep mine very brief, is the Nokia Lumia 920 is what I would select given those options. I like carrying something different. I know it's untested. It's a risk. It's a bold move. I wish it were in cyan, because that would make my answer even simpler. but I would carry one of those just because I really enjoyed my time with Windows Phone 7. I think Windows Phone 8 corrects all the deficiencies that I complained about with 7, or at least in theory. And the optics, considering the noise Nokia is making about PureView, and also the lessons they undoubtedly learned from the horrible 900 camera, I think it's reasonable to assume the optics are going to be really good. Go ahead.
You know, speaking of Cyan, you know, you're going to get mad about this, but they'll most likely launch the Cyan
like 2 months after launch, right?
No, for a carrier-specific Cyan. It's just stupid. It's just stupid. The event was blue. The event was blue. Everything, the box is blue.
Nokia's branding is blue. Yeah.
Everything is blue. So, yes, they're going to launch a blue Lumia. It's just going to happen for a specific carrier. They'll most likely land that deal.
If it's an American carrier, I will be pleased, because that's what I want. I want a Cyan 920. Before we close it up, Brandon, do we have any closing thoughts from you, sir?
Not today, but thanks for asking.
It's all right. And Jaime.
No, I think it was great sharing the floor with you guys yesterday with the iPhone coverage that we did. It was great, yes. And all the other coverage you guys did at IFA and everything that's happening. It's been a crazy week. I just hope that manufacturers and OEMs learn their lesson from here on. That you can't just stand in front of a stage and tell how great your product is if you're not going to give people a launch date. Mm-hmm. Please change that.
Or you can, and you can for a while, but eventually people will tire of it.
Eventually, Apple will come out with their iPhone and kill you. That's what's going to happen.
Right. All right, guys, that wraps it up for us. Jaime, I agree. It was great sharing the floor with you guys yesterday, as well as today. It's great to get back to kind of a regular Pocketnow Weekly after the field trip of last week. We did miss Tony, but we'll have him back next week. Unfortunately, we are limited by the constraints of human biology, listeners, because I have had half a gallon of coffee this morning and desperately need to pee. So that wraps it up for this episode of the Pocketnow Weekly. Throw a tweet our way, guys. We're big into Twitter. Some of us are. When he's here, Brandon Miniman is at Brandon Miniman. Tony, when he's here, is at Anton Dinaj. Jaime, you are, if I'm correct, Jaime_Rivera. Is that right?
That's right.
Cool. I am at Captain Two Phones. You can follow Pocketnow's official Twitter account at PocketNowTweets. You can follow us on Facebook. Just search for Pocketnow. Do that on Google Plus as well if you use Google Plus, which is nice and clean and white and cool. Also, we are kind of in need of reviews on iTunes, guys. If you want to leave a positive review on iTunes, if you like our podcast, please do. If you don't,
if you hate us.
Yeah, if you really hate us, to give us at least make a negative review entertaining. No, seriously, if you have a topic, question, or suggestion for the podcast, we're sorry we didn't get to listener mail this week, but it's just been a crazy week. So please send them in. Podcast@pocketnow.com is the address. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Bye-bye.